Hello everyone, I am Akila Singha from Group 4. Today I am going to talk about the section I did in my database group assignment 1. Let's move to the next slide. In this presentation I am going to talk about ER diagrams, create table statements and drop table statements. ER diagrams. ER diagram contain three components. They are entities, attributes and relationships. So our assignment based on this shown ERD. There are three relationships shown: book, allocation and author. You can see the double rectangles in allocation entity. It represents as a weak entity. The weak entity is entity that cannot be uniquely identified by its attributes alone. Therefore, it must use a foreign key in connection with its attributes to create a primary key. The primary key shown by an underline. So the primary key for book is BID and the primary key for author is author ID. We can read this ERD as starting with left side. One book may have many allocations. One allocation must have one book. And starting with right side, one allocation must have one author. One author may have many allocations. Let's move to the next slide. Create table statement. First I am going to explain about create table statement. Here you can see the syntax that we use to create table that I have taken from my lecture PDF. There is green color words named create table, primary key, foreign key and reference. These are called keywords. You should write create table, then the table name, then column name and their data types and maximum length of those. Then you should write the primary key of the table in primary key, column name, then the foreign key and name of the foreign key from which that is reference. Then the reference table name should write at the end. This is how we create our book table in assignment 1. First we have to use drop table book to remove there is an existing table called book. Then create table book column name, book ID, title, selling price and their data types, and you can see we have used not null keyword to book and title. After primary key, you can see primary key BID is underlined. Therefore primary key for book ID, and finally we have using constraint that is check constraint to check the selling price whether it is greater than 0. This is our second table creating the author table. Here you can see author is strong entity, therefore we created author table at second. First we use drop table author statement to drop if there is an existing table called author. Then we created the author table, author ID, Fname, Sname are the column names. Then the data types and author ID should not be null. Therefore we use not null constraint. Then primary key, author ID. At last we use constraint called unique constraint for Fname and Sname. This is the allocation table that we created. It is an weak entity. It starts with create table allocation column name, book ID, author ID, pay rate and their data types. And book ID and author ID should be not null. Therefore we use not null keyword. Then primary key book ID and author ID. Therefore allocation has two primary keys. And then foreign key book ID reference book table. Then foreign key author ID reference author table. Finally we use constraint check constraintment to check the pay rate between 1 and 79.99. So let's talk about drop table statement. These drop table statements are used to drop an existing table in the database. Here you can see drop table syntax. First you should type drop table and drop table name and semicolon at the end. Now you can see the drop table statement that we used in our assignment 1. First we created strong entity tables. If there is a book table that is existing, we should drop that table first. That's why we use drop table statement before creating book table. And you can see that we have used drop table to another before creating author table. And finally, this is the weak entity allocation table. We have used drop table statement before creating allocation table. So this is the end of my presentation. Here I describe how to read ERD diagrams, create tables and drop tables. I think you got an overall idea on my knowledge and how I did my assignment 1. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice day.